Dear brothers and sisters, today is not just any day. There are dates that seem to be written on heaven's calendar, moments when history stops and the invisible becomes more real than anything we touch. August 20th, 2025 is not a coincidence. It is a mystery sealed deep within the heart of Our Lady. Many feel that on that date a secret door opens, a sign of purification that the world still doesn't understand. What did Our Lady really want to tell us? Why does this day seem to be marked with fire in the divine plan? I invite you to stay until the end, because what you discover today could change the way you see the future and, above all, your soul. There are dates that are marked in history without the need for official announcements, without trumpets proclaiming them, without headlines warning them. They are silent dates, hidden in the heart of time, but laden with a mystery that only the sensitive can perceive. August 20th, 2025 is one of those dates that begins to be surrounded by a strange aura, as if heaven had written something on its pages that we still don't fully understand. And the most disconcerting thing is that some claim that this day is linked to the Virgin Mary, not in the form of punishment, but as a heavenly purification that only she knows and reveals to those who listen carefully. Imagine the atmosphere beforehand. The streets continue their routine. The news reports talk about politics and the economy. People rush to work as usual. And yet, deep in our hearts, a strange feeling beats. Many dream of burning skies, others feel an unexplained restlessness. Some hear in their thoughts phrases they'd never thought of before. Prepare yourselves, because the time is approaching. The air itself seems heavy, as if breathing it requires more effort than usual. This isn't a movie apocalypse, but something much more intimate, a vibration of the soul that announces that something is approaching. On that day, according to rumors, what many call the secret purification will be revealed. It will not be a fire that ravages cities, nor an earthquake that destroys mountains. It will be something deeper, a spiritual fire that will touch the conscience of every human being, revealing in an instant what we truly are. There will be no room for masks or excuses. Each heart will see itself as in a perfect mirror, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, what we love and what we reject. And in the midst of that revelation, the figure of the Virgin will appear as mother, not to condemn, but to sustain, because she knows that facing the truth can hurt, and only her tenderness can soften the edge of that purification. Ancient texts speak of such moments. At Fatima, the shepherd children saw visions of fire that was not simply destruction, but purification. At Akita, Our Lady warned of flames that would fall upon the world, but also promised her intercession. And Medjugorje, there was talk of secrets that would come in times of confusion, and that each person would have to decide which side to take. All these pieces seem to fit together like a mysterious puzzle that points towards something, a time of inner cleansing, a time when heaven will no longer bear the silence of humanity and will hold up a mirror before our eyes. Some ask, why August 20th and not another day? The answer perhaps lies not in human calendars, but in the divine calendar. God chooses precise, seemingly ordinary moments to reveal the extraordinary, and August 20th has something of that hidden character, a day that doesn't seem to stand out, yet holds a secret. In the liturgy, that day often commemorates saints who lived in humility, far from earthly glory, which coincides with the idea that what seems small in the eyes of the world is great in the eyes of God. Perhaps in that detail, Our Lady is telling us that purification will not come in a noisy spectacle, but in a silence that burns in the heart. There will be signs, some say, signs that few will know how to interpret. Perhaps a sudden change in the sky, an unusual stillness in nature, an inexplicable perfume in the air, perhaps bells ringing alone, or tears flowing from Marian images. It won't be something for television cameras, but for the eyes of the soul. Those who have faith will recognize it immediately. It is she, the mother, who is passing among us. Those who don't believe will dismiss it as suggestion, but they won't be able to avoid feeling deep within a tremor they won't know how to explain. The Virgin Mary does not come to bring fear. Her appearances throughout history demonstrate this time and again. She warns, but at the same time she embraces. She doesn't just point out danger, she points out the way out. And that way out is always her Son, the Christ who awaits us with open arms. Therefore, when we speak of purification, we are not speaking of senseless destruction, but of an opportunity. Like when a mother cleans the wounds of her child, it hurts, but it is necessary for healing. So will August 20th, a day when heaven will show us our wounds so that we may heal them, a day when the Mother will take us by the hand to cross the threshold of what is to come. And here's the most disturbing thing. Many feel they've already begun to experience small anticipations of that date, dreams in which they see the Virgin weeping, sudden thoughts about the brevity of life, intuitions that push us to reconcile with those we've hurt. They're like echoes that arrive before the storm, like distant bells announcing that the clock is about to strike the decisive hour. Whoever listens to these echoes and ignores them runs the risk of being unprepared. But whoever welcomes them, even if they tremble, is already taking the first step toward purification. It won't be easy. Seeing our truth never is. The fire of purification burns, not out of cruelty, but because true love doesn't tolerate lies. And when Our Lady approaches that day, each person will feel the power of that love in their hearts. Some will allow themselves to be embraced and rise renewed. Others will flee because they cannot bear the light that reveals what they preferred to keep in the dark. The difference will not be in the fire, but in each soul's response. For many, August 20th, 2025 will be an ordinary day, but for those with spiritual eyes, it will be the beginning of a change that cannot be reversed. Because once the truth has been seen, there is no turning back, and the Virgin knows this. Therefore, even though there are still months to go, she is already beginning to prepare hearts, already whispering in dreams, already gently touching consciences. She is a mother, and no mother leaves her children alone in times of trial. And as I write these words, I know that what I've shared is just the beginning of the mystery, because what will be revealed in the following hours of that day will not only confirm the prophecy, but will open a door that no one can close. The sun of August 20th, 2025 will rise like any other, but with a subtle difference that few will recognize at first. There will be something in the light, in the way the rays caress the trees, in the silence of the streets before the daily hustle and bustle. It will be as if all of nature were holding its breath, awaiting an event that belongs not to human time, but to God's time. Most people will notice nothing strange, but in attentive hearts, a restlessness difficult to explain will awaken, as if someone invisible were gently knocking at the door of the soul, saying, "Today is the day." Throughout history, heaven has always sent signs before great revelations. On May 13th, 1917, the shepherd children of Fatima saw a radiance that preceded the apparition of Our Lady. In Akita, Japan, the statue of Mary wept tears that foretold times of sorrow. In Medjugorje, the visionaries received messages about the urgency of conversion. These were never empty warnings. They were always calls of love wrapped in mystery. And now, many believe that August 20th, 2025 will be another of those moments when heaven will speak powerfully, not in loud words, but in signs that only the humble will know how to interpret. On that day, some mystics say, a visible catastrophe will not manifest itself, but rather an inner experience. A spiritual mirror will be placed before each soul, revealing in an instant what we are in the eyes of God. It will not be a final judgment, but a personal and collective purification, a flash of truth that will burn like fire in the heart. It will be like looking squarely into the light and realizing that nothing can be hidden. Those who are prepared will receive it as an immense gift. Those in darkness will feel it as an unbearable weight. Imagine the scene. A woman who always avoided thinking about her life of faith, suddenly, in the midst of her routine, feels a warmth in her chest, and a succession of images flash before her eyes. She sees her family, her decisions, her hurtful words, and her tender gestures. Everything appears with a brutal clarity, impossible to deny. She falls to her knees without knowing why, and through tears murmurs a sorry she'd never uttered before. Elsewhere, a man hardened by pride experiences the same thing, but instead of giving up, he screams in rage as if he wants to flee from himself. Both experience the same fire, but the response is different. That will be purification, an opportunity, not a condemnation. The Virgin Mary will be the great invisible protagonist of that day. She will not appear physically in every heaven, but she will be present in every heart that calls upon her. Many will feel her like a soft blanket covering their fears. Others will hear her whispering within, saying, "Do not be afraid, my child, I am with you." There will be those who, in their prayers, perceive her scent of roses, a sign that she walks among us. And there will be those who see tears tears in Marian images, tears not of sadness, but of maternal compassion, because she knows how difficult it is to face the truth. The media will try to explain it away. They will talk about collective phenomena, mass suggestion, global stress. But none of these analyses will be able to touch what will really happen. Millions of people crying at the same time without knowing why, millions of consciences suddenly awakening, millions of hearts trembling as if they have heard the voice of their Creator. No one will be able to deny that something will happen, even if many do not call it by its true name. It will be like a secret shared between heaven and earth, a secret that the Virgin Mary always knew. On that day, churches will be filled like never before. Bells that had remained silent for years will ring out loud again, not because someone rings them, but because heaven itself will make them vibrate. Rosaries forgotten in drawers will be urgently sought out, and candles lit in chapels will shine more brightly than usual. In small towns, people without knowing each other will embrace each other, and in chaotic cities, even among strangers, tears and glances will be shared that say, "I felt it too." It will be a universal awakening, albeit a silent one, because what matters most will not be what is seen outside, but what each person experiences within. However, not everyone will react the same way. Some will resist with all their might, seeking refuge in distractions, in immediate pleasures, in stubborn denials. For them, purification will be an unbearable fire. The same love that heals some will burn others, and the Virgin, with infinite tenderness, will continue to intercede, pleading that no one be lost, even when her most rebellious children close their eyes to the light, because she never gives up. Her mission is to accompany us until the very last moment, hoping that in a moment of grace, even the most hardened will finally say, yes. What will make August 20th, 2025 unique will not be a visible spectacle, but a spiritual event that will silently mark the history of humanity. And that silence will be louder than any thunder, because when a soul awakens to the truth, the entire universe trembles. Our Lady knows this secret. She has kept it in her heart from the beginning, waiting for the precise moment to open it to us. That day will be like a threshold. Those who cross it with faith will enter into a new clarity. Those who reject it will remain trapped in their own darkness. And meanwhile, in every corner of the world, testimonies will multiply. People who had never been interested in spiritual matters will say, "I felt a voice within me." Little children will tell of dreaming of a lady clothed in light. Elderly people on their beds of pain will claim to have heard words of comfort that came from no one visible. These stories, which for some will be a source of ridicule, for others will be confirmation that the mother never abandons her children. That August 20th will be remembered as the day humanity was looked in the eye by heaven. And although not everyone will immediately grasp the magnitude of what they experienced, little by little, the consequences will be revealed. Because an experience like that is not forgotten. Once the fire of purification has been felt, nothing is ever the same again. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, the trivial loses its power, and the eternal takes over with a weight impossible to ignore. And the most disturbing thing is that this day will not close the mystery, but rather open it even further. Because what the Virgin Mary will reveal will not be the end, but the beginning of a journey that will continue in the days and weeks to come. A journey of decisions, of trials, of progressive revelations that will confront all of humanity with the most important question of its existence. And on that journey, every step will be decisive, every prayer will be crucial, every yes or no will have an eternal echo. The afternoon of August 20th, 2025 will unfold with an intensity rarely seen in human history. There will be no thunder falling from the sky or visible explosions on earth, but every minute will be charged with a spiritual weight impossible to ignore. It is as if the entire planet has entered a different vibration, an invisible pulse that runs through bodies and consciences. Some will describe it as anxiety, others as a strange calm, but deep down everyone will know that this is not something ordinary. The day will not be the same as the previous ones, because there will be an air of revelation hanging in the air. On the streets, faces will reflect this tension. There will be those who walk faster, as if fleeing from something, and those who stop, their gaze fixed on the sky, as if waiting for a definitive signal to descend from there. The sun will shine with a particular brilliance, a deeper golden hue than usual, which in some places will blend with reddish shadows. Meteorologists will speak of particles in the atmosphere, of light reflections, of natural causes. But in sensitive hearts, this brilliance will have another meaning. The sky is trying to speak to us, even if science cannot translate its words. Meanwhile, in simple homes, in hidden chapels, in crowded squares, prayers will rise up like never before. The rosary will be recited in 1,000 languages, yet it will sound like one voice. The Hail Mary, repeated with tears in our eyes, will become a universal hymn that will cross borders and unite hearts. Many who had never prayed before will spontaneously join in, moved by an inner impulse impossible to resist. It is as if all of humanity were remembering in a single instant that it has a mother who has always been there, awaiting its return. Amid this wave of prayer, strange phenomena will begin to occur. In small towns in Latin America, images of the Virgin Mary will begin to glow softly as if breathing light. In Europe, bells will be reported ringing on their own in churches closed for years. In Asia, groups of people will swear they have seen flashes in the sky in the shape of an outstretched cloak. And in Africa, entire communities will smell a scent of flowers that fills the air, for no natural explanation. All these signs will seem like small miracles, but when combined, they will form an impressive mosaic. Heaven manifests itself silently, without spectacle, but with unstoppable force. The heavenly purification, which only the Virgin Mary knows in its fullness, will begin to be felt in the depths of her being. It will not be a fire that scorches forests, nor a lightning bolt that splits mountains, but an inner fire that will reveal the truth of each life. A young man who has lived amid vice and violence will suddenly feel a burning in his heart and see his mother's tears, the mistakes he made, and the missed opportunities flash before his eyes. He will weep like never before and fall to his knees, feeling that for the first time in his life, the voice of God is calling him. Elsewhere, a woman hardened by resentment will see within herself all the moments when she could have forgiven but didn't. Her heart will struggle between opening or closing even further. Purification will not force anyone, but will offer everyone the possibility of choice. This will be the true mystery of August 20th, not an external spectacle for the cameras, but an inner drama in which each soul will confront its own truth. And in the midst of this process, the Virgin Mary will appear as a mediator, not to judge, but to accompany. Many will say they have seen her in dreams. Others will feel her invisible embrace in their greatest moment of pain. Her presence will be like a balm, because looking into one's own darkness without love would be unbearable. She will be the bridge, the mother who sustains her son when the light reveals his wounds. The world at the same time will experience scenes of contrast. In some places, communities will unite in prayer, experiencing a peace that disarms even violence. In others, fear will unleash chaos, riots, looting, clashes. It is a reflection of what is happening within. The fire that illuminates some consumes others, and this division will mark the beginning of a new era in history. It will not be a division of countries or religions, but of hearts, those who choose the light and those who cling to the darkness. The media will be overwhelmed. They will try to offer rational explanations, but the images that will arrive from all over the world will be impossible to hide. Crowds weeping in prayer, statues radiating light, inexplicable phenomena in the sky. There will be talk of psychological manipulation, massive coincidences, optical illusions, but in the hearts of millions there will be no doubt something supernatural has occurred. And in this void of human responses, the name of the Virgin Mary will resonate like never before on the lips of believers and unbelievers alike. The fire of purification will continue to burn into the evening hours. Many will feel the need to reconcile with relatives they haven't seen for years. Others will rush to church seeking confession. There will be those who call old friends to ask for forgiveness, and those who embrace strangers as if they were brothers. These gestures, small and enormous at the same time, will be proof that heaven is acting on earth. For what no decree or law has achieved in centuries, a moment of truth will accomplish by illuminating hearts. And meanwhile, there will be those who cannot bear the weight of this revelation. Some will close their eyes and cling more tightly to their sins, as if the darkness seemed safer than the light. Others will rebel, accusing believers of fabrication, exaggeration, and manipulation. But even if they cry out and deny, they will not be able to erase what they have seen within themselves. The mirror has already been shown, and that vision will remain engraved in the memory of their souls. When night falls, the entire planet will know that something transcendental has happened. There will be no need for sensational headlines or official speeches. Each person will carry within themselves the certainty of having been touched by a fire that is not human. Some will sleep peacefully for the first time in years. Others will be unable to close their eyes for fear of what they saw inside. The purification will not be over. It will have barely begun, and what will unfold in the following days will show that August 20th, 2025 was not an isolated event, but the door to a much deeper mystery, a mystery that will continue to reveal itself little by little, like a secret that only the Virgin knows in its entirety. The early morning of August 21st, 2025 will be different from all the others. Those who experienced the intensity of the previous day will wake up with a strange feeling, as if they had crossed an invisible threshold. There will be no explosions or official announcements, but the air itself will feel transformed. The birds will sing differently, the streets will be thickly silent, and even the wind will seem to carry an unknown murmur. Many will think that what happened the day before was a collective dream, a suggestion. However, one need only look at one another to understand that what they experienced was real, and that it has left its mark on everyone's soul. The testimonies will multiply. People who had never been interested in spiritual matters will tell how, at some point on August 20th, they felt time stop and saw scenes from their lives flash by with an unforgettable clarity. Elderly people will recall sins hidden for decades. Young people will experience a call to change their path. Children will say they dreamed of a lady in a blue cloak calling them by name. Skeptics will try to reduce it all to hallucinations, but deep down, they too will know something touched them, because no one will emerge from that day the same as before. The heavenly purification will not have ended with August 20th, it will have barely begun. What happened was like opening a crack in time, a space where heaven showed each soul a reflection of itself. Now comes the consequence, what to do with what was revealed. For some it will be a rebirth. They will seek prayer, forgiveness, reconciliation. For others, it will be an unbearable burden. They will want to forget what they saw. They will sink deeper into darkness, trying to extinguish the voice that resonated within them. And in that struggle, the presence of the Virgin will be more necessary than ever. It is said that in the early hours of the morning, in different parts of the world, Marian images began to radiate a soft light, as if confirming her presence. In a small church in Italy, pilgrims claimed that the statue of the Virgin extended a hand toward them. In Mexico, in front of the Basilica of Guadalupe, thousands reported feeling an enveloping warmth while praying, as if the Virgin's mantle had physically covered them. In the Philippines, a crowd in a procession reported hearing a female voice saying, "Children, do not be afraid. I am here." These signs were no coincidence. They were confirmation that Mary continued to walk among her children in the time of purification. The media, caught between the pressure to report and the fear of losing credibility, began broadcasting images that disconcerted their audiences. Videos of weeping statues, recordings of mysterious voices captured on microphones, testimonies from crowds who claimed to have seen the same glow in the sky. Some journalists, visibly moved, burst into tears in front of the cameras, unable to explain what they had personally experienced. For the first time in a long time, the world seemed united not by a physical catastrophe, but by an all-encompassing spiritual event. Amidst this wave of experiences, humanity will become increasingly divided. There will be those who see in all this a loving invitation from heaven and begin to transform their lives with simple gestures, forgiving a brother, returning to prayer, helping the needy. But there will also be those who react with cynicism and rage, mocking believers, calling fanaticism what is truly faith, violently rejecting what they know deep down to be true. This will be the great test. Purification will not force anyone, it will only reveal it. The choice will remain free, and each heart will decide which fire to embrace. The night of the 20th to the 21st will also leave indelible memories in the form of cosmic signs. Astronomers will report unusual movements in the skies, lights that do not correspond to stars or satellites. There will be those who speak of planetary alignments, solar phenomena, and scientific causes, but at the same time, simple peasants will look up and say, "It's the sky speaking," and in their eyes will shine the certainty of those who know how to read the signs not with telescopes, but with their hearts. The days that follow will be marked by a global spiritual awakening. In parishes and churches around the world, endless lines of people will seek confession, reconciliation, and a return to the sacraments. Many priests will say they have never seen anything like it. The streets will witness spontaneous processions where thousands will walk in silence holding candles, a symbol of their desire to keep the flame of what they experienced burning. And yet, at the same time, there will be resistance. Groups will seek to extinguish this resurgent faith, powerful voices that will try to divert attention, distracting with spectacles and news stories designed to bury what happened under tons of banality. But it will be useless. August 20th, 2025 will be etched in the world's memory as the day humanity was looked down upon by heaven. And even if many try to forget it, the signs will continue to appear. Repeated dreams, strong intuitions, words that emerge in prayer, impossible coincidences. It will be as if the Virgin Mary continues to remind us, do not forget what you saw. Do not ignore what you felt. This is the time of purification, and the greatest thing is yet to be revealed. The mystery will not end there, because what was experienced in those hours was not the conclusion, but the prologue. The deepest is yet to come, and in the days that follow, the heavens will speak again in even more surprising ways. It will be a gradual process, a continuous awakening that will require vigilance and prayer, and those who have opened their eyes will no longer be able to close them, because once the truth touches the soul, no darkness can erase its light. The days following August 20th, 2025 will be marked by a contrast the world has never experienced so clearly. On the one hand, a multitude of renewed hearts, who after having felt the fire of inner purification will rise with a different light in their eyes. On the other hand, there will be those who live tormented, trying to smother with distractions and violence what they experienced in their deepest depths. It will be as if all of humanity had passed through a mirror and were now divided into two currents, moving in opposite directions. A new atmosphere will be felt in many homes. Parents who had never prayed with their children will begin to do so. Frayed marriages will be reconciled, and broken friendships will be reunited. This will not be due to external imposition, but because in looking at the truth of their lives on that day, they will understand how much time they had wasted in resentment and pride. The purification will have left an indelible mark on them, like a luminous scar that will remind them that love is the only thing that endures. And this mark will be so strong that they will not be able to keep it silent. They will speak of what they experienced. They will bear witness. They will share with tears in their eyes that heaven truly touched earth. At the same time, in other homes, the heavy silence of denial will reign. People who couldn't bear the sight of their own faults will try to bury them under a frantic routine, consuming more, distracting themselves more, fleeing from everything that reminds them of that August 20th. But no matter how hard they run, the memory will not fade. Dreams will return in their nights. The inner voice they heard will resonate in their conscience, and deep down they will know that denying does not change reality. Purification was not an illusion. It was a grace, and to reject it is to carry an unbearable weight. Churches will continue to be crowded. In parishes that once held only a few faithful, there will now be endless lines seeking confession, communion, and consolation. Priests will speak of exhausting days, yet moved because they have never seen so many souls return so suddenly. In humble chapels, images of the Virgin will continue to radiate signs, tears, perfumes, radiance. They will be constant reminders that the mother has not abandoned her children in this process. She accompanies them, supports them, guides them step by step in their purification. The world, however, will not remain silent. The media will be divided between those who try to ridicule what happened and those who dare to acknowledge that something inexplicable is happening. Scientists will discuss theories about collective psychic phenomena. Astronomers will talk about solar radiation. Psychologists will talk about shared hysteria. But no explanation will be able to extinguish the power of personal testimonies. How can we explain that millions of people in such distant and unconnected places lived the same inner mirror experience? How can we deny the tears of those who had never shown interest in the spiritual and now speak with certainty of having been touched by heaven? In Latin America particularly, stories of profound encounters will multiply. Farmers in small towns will say that in the middle of their fields they heard songs songs without human origin. Humble families will affirm that while praying together, they felt a feminine presence embrace them with indescribable warmth. And in large cities, entire crowds will begin to organize spontaneous vigils in plazas, lighting candles and praying the rosary under the night sky. It will be a spiritual awakening such as has never been seen before, and the Virgin Mary will be at the center of this wave of conversion. But resistance will also increase. Powerful groups, uncomfortable with the rebirth of faith, will try to silence what is happening. They will say it is a manipulation of religion, that it is a plan to control the masses, that it is all the product of suggestion. They will mock the faithful, call them naive, and try to laugh at their testimonies. But the more they try, the more evident will be the difference between the luminous peace of those who embraced purification and the empty gaze of those who rejected it. The division cannot be hidden. It will be in the eyes, in the attitudes, in the very way of life. There will also be physical manifestations in nature. Some will speak of skies tinged with strange colors at dusk, of auroras visible in places where they have never been seen before, of animals behaving in unusual ways. Scientists will have partial answers, but ordinary people will recognize in these signs an echo of what they already know in their hearts. The heavens continue to send signs. And among these signs, the Virgin will appear ever more strongly, not necessarily in visions visible to all, but in the inner certainty that will spread like an impossible to extinguish fire. The most impressive thing will be that even among the unbelievers, some will begin to change. Professionals, politicians, and intellectuals who had always denied any spiritual reality will privately confess to having felt something that day. They will say they cannot explain it, that they do not believe in apparitions or prophecies, but that they saw their lives flash before their eyes and do not know what to do with this truth. Some will keep quiet out of shame, others will timidly share it, and little by little the seed will grow, because purification, even if not immediately accepted, leaves a mark that germinates over time. That will be the great mystery. August 20th, 2025 will not end in a day. It will be the beginning of a process that will last months, perhaps years, a process in which each soul must decide how to respond to what they have experienced, and the Virgin Mary will continue to accompany them, like a patient mother who does not abandon her children even when they resist. She knows human weakness. She knows how difficult it is to change, but she also knows that the grace of that day will not be lost. Sooner or later she will touch every heart again until she gives her definitive answer, and meanwhile the world will continue its course, but nothing will ever be the same, because a humanity that has seen the truth can no longer live in lies as before. The heavenly purification will have left a luminous wound in history, a mark impossible to erase, a memory that will accompany all who were alive on that day. And although many try to forget, the echo of that August 20th will resonate like an unquenchable call, a constant reminder that heaven spoke and the Virgin Mary was there, silently guiding humanity's destiny. The days following August 20th, 2025 will feel like a prolonged echo, as if all of humanity had been left vibrating at a different frequency. The most surprising thing will not be what is seen with the eyes, but what is experienced in the depths of the soul. Millions of people will carry with them the certainty of having lived a supernatural moment, even if they find it difficult to put it into words. Others will try to repress it, hide it under routine, but the memory will return in the silences of the night, in moments of solitude, in dreams that will repeat themselves again and again. What seemed like a single day will become a process. Purification will not have been a single flash, but a door that opened and will remain open. Each person will feel this opening differently, some as a constant relief, a peace they had never known, others as a wrenching, an unbearable weight that prevents them from sleeping peacefully. The difference will be in the response given. Those who opened themselves to the fire will experience consolation. Those who rejected it will feel the burning of an unhealed wound. In the communities, a curious phenomenon will begin. Spontaneous testimonies. Ordinary people who had never spoken in public will feel the need to share what they experienced. A simple woman will say in a square, "I saw everything, my mistakes, my sins, and I heard a voice telling me there is still time." A young man will confess through tears, "I felt the Virgin Mary embrace me and tell me that I was not lost." These stories will multiply in towns, cities, and parishes, and even if the powerful try to silence them, their power will be unstoppable. Because these are not theories, but first-hand experiences. Religious leaders will see in this a mass awakening. In Rome, in Jerusalem, at Marian shrines around the world, multitudes will come seeking answers. The Vatican, aware of the delicacy of the situation, will call for discernment and prayer, but will not be able to deny the magnitude of the phenomenon. Elsewhere, pastors of different faiths will also recognize that something spiritual has occurred beyond creeds and denominations. The purification will have made no distinctions. It will have touched everyone, believers and non-believers, Catholics, Protestants, atheists. It will be a universal experience that will confirm that God speaks to the hearts of all his children. But resistance will also grow. Influential voices in the media and politics will insist that it was all manipulation, that people were influenced by rumors and fake news. Experts will emerge, attempting to reduce the experience to psychological causes, astronomical phenomena, or simple collective illusions. However, the contradictions in their discourse will be so evident that many will begin to distrust it, because what was experienced was not merely external, it was intimate, personal, profound, and no argument will prevail against that experience. The Virgin, meanwhile, will continue to act silently. Discreet signs, gentle but firm calls will multiply. In small chapels, images that give off perfume. In humble homes, rosaries that are dimly lit. In the hearts of those who pray, phrases that reach without being thought. Do not be afraid, I am with you. These details, ignored by the big headlines, will be treasures for those who receive them, and they will become the strength that sustains believers in the midst of confusion. There will also be more striking signs. Some will report seeing lights in the sky in the shape of crosses or outstretched cloaks. Others will hear chants in the early morning, like invisible choirs piercing the darkness. There will even be those who, in dreams, receive clear messages from the Virgin, reminding them of the urgency of conversion and the need to pray for the whole world. These dreams will be so vivid that many will recount them as if they were real experiences, and in a way they will be, because the line between the visible and the invisible will have become thinner after August 20th. The world will then experience a paradox. While some draw closer to God than ever, others sink into despair. There will be communities that flourish in solidarity, sharing food, caring for the sick, multiplying acts of love. But there will also be places dominated by violence, where fear turns to rage and darkness seems to gain ground. The double fire spoken of in ancient prophecies will continue to burn, the fire that illuminates and purifies, and the fire that destroys and consumes. And each person, each family, each nation will have to decide which fire to embrace. The political and social consequences will soon appear. Entire governments will be shaken by the spiritual awakening of their people. Some leaders will try to take advantage of the phenomenon to gain power, presenting themselves as saviors or interpreters of what has happened. Others, however, will feel overwhelmed, unable to control what they do not understand. Hasty decisions will be made, restrictive measures will be imposed, and there will be talk of maintaining order. But none of this will be able to stem what is already underway, an inner transformation in millions of souls that no human power can stop. In families, children will be unexpected protagonists. Many parents will tell how their young children, upon waking up on the morning of the 21st, spoke with a wisdom that didn't correspond to them. Phrases like, "Mom, the lady said we should pray more," or "Dad, don't be afraid, she is here," will be heard in thousands of homes. Adults, surprised, will understand that the Virgin is also manifesting herself through the most innocent, as she did at Fatima. And those children's voices will be impossible to silence because they will emerge with the purity of truth. The purification process, far from being an isolated event, will become a constant call. Each day after the 20th will be an invitation to remember what has been experienced, to not let routine erase the grace received. The Virgin will continue to whisper to hearts, insisting that what matters is not fear, but preparation. Because what happened was not the end, but the beginning of something greater, a prelude that will pave the way for new, even more surprising revelations that will gradually transform the destiny of humanity. And so, while the world tries to understand what happened, the mystery will deepen, because everyone knows, deep down, that August 20th, 2025 was not just any day, but a date written in the sky from the beginning, and although no one can yet say what will come next, everyone senses that what they experienced was just the first page of a story that will continue to unfold with irresistible force. As the days passed after August 20th, 2025, something strange began to happen in the collective consciousness. It wasn't just a memory, nor a passing emotion. It was as if an invisible seal had been left imprinted on time and in the heart of humanity. People kept repeating the date in their conversations as if it were impossible to forget. That day, something changed, some said. It was as if the sky had looked right at us, others murmured. The feeling that the world had crossed an invisible threshold grew stronger and stronger. Newspapers and newscasts, unable to ignore the phenomenon, were filled with contradictory headlines. Some spoke of a mysterious global spiritual awakening. Others reduced it to mass hysteria. But what was most disturbing was that although the media tried to manipulate the narrative, millions of people shared similar experiences. In different parts of the world, strangers described the same visions: a glow, a tender female voice, an urgent call to repentance. How could so many people agree without having communicated with each other? It was a mystery that no scientific explanation could solve. What was most surprising was the visible transformation in some hearts. People who had lived decades away from the faith suddenly returned to prayer. Marriages on the brink of divorce decided to give it another try. Young people lost in addiction confessed to feeling the need to radically change their lives. Even in prisons and hospitals, unexpected conversions were reported, as if the purification had touched even the darkest corners of society. But, along with the silent miracles, opposition also grew. Some political leaders, fearing losing control of their communities, began issuing warnings against what they called religious fanaticism. Campaigns were organized to discredit testimonies, ridicule those who spoke of the Virgin, and sow doubt in public opinion. However, these campaigns only had the opposite effect. The more they tried to silence the testimonies, the more they gained strength, because people perceived the manipulation and clung even more tightly to what they had experienced in the depths of their souls. Amid this polarized atmosphere, new signs began to appear. In several cities, the sky displayed unusual phenomena: clouds with Marian shapes, lights that seemed to descend gently like veils, sunsets tinged with an intense red, reminiscent of a purifying fire. Astronomers tried to explain it as atmospheric coincidences, but those who witnessed it knew it was no coincidence. It was as if the Virgin, after August 20th, had decided to never stop speaking to the world. Families began to gather again around prayer. The rosary, forgotten in many homes, rang again in the evenings. Grandparents taught their grandchildren how to pray it. Mothers murmured it while cooking, and young people shared it in digital groups. It was as if the echo of purification had awakened the need to return to the essentials. And although not everyone understood what was happening, the intuition that something great was approaching spread like a whisper in the wind. Those who resisted, on the other hand, experienced a restlessness that was difficult to describe. It was like a weight on their chest, a constant discomfort, an anxiety that couldn't be quenched. Some tried to drown this feeling with entertainment, consumerism, or indifference, but nothing worked, because the fire that had been lit couldn't be extinguished with human distractions. And the more they tried to smother it, the more it burned deep inside, demanding a decision. In the churches, the priests began to notice something extraordinary: endless confessions. Faithful who had been away for years suddenly came, tears in their eyes, seeking reconciliation with God. "I can't explain it, Father, but I need to confess," they repeated over and over again. It was as if all of humanity had suddenly been reminded of the importance of cleansing the soul. And although some churches couldn't accommodate everyone, the Virgin found ways to reach even those who couldn't enter. Dreams, visions, inner words that whispered forgiveness. Meanwhile, social media became a spiritual battlefield. Thousands of videos recounting experiences began circulating, accumulating millions of views. Simple people from different corners of the planet shared the same story: an encounter with the light, a call to repentance, a feeling of indescribable love. Algorithms couldn't stem this wave of testimonies, and even though they tried to bury them under a sea of empty entertainment, they always resurfaced. It was as if the truth had a life of its own, as if it couldn't be silenced. In this context, August 20th, 2025 became a symbol. It was no longer just a date on the calendar. It was the beginning of a new era, an open door that no one could close. Some called it the Day of Fire, others the Day of the Mirror of the Soul. But for devotees of the Virgin, it was clear. It was the day on which she had shown once again that heaven is attentive to earth, that humanity is not alone. And yet, everyone understood that what they had experienced was only the beginning, that while the purification had shaken hearts, there were still more intense trials, deeper revelations, and greater challenges to come. The message wasn't just consolation, it was preparation. The Virgin hadn't come to put on a show, but to prepare her children for something yet to come. And that certainty, that feeling that the mystery was just beginning, kept millions awake, praying, waiting, attentive to the signs that would continue to appear. As the weeks passed, the memory of August 20th, 2025 didn't fade, but rather intensified like an unquenchable fire. Each dawn brought with it a kind of sacred unease, as if the entire world had entered a countdown time. It was a feeling difficult to explain, a mixture of expectation, fear, and hope. No one knew for sure what would come next, but everyone felt deep down that the story wasn't over. In the poorest villages of Latin America, silent miracles were reported. A mother suffering from cancer claimed to have received new strength after praying the rosary on the day of her purification. A child born with a motor disability began to move his legs more freely after dreaming of a woman dressed in white caressing him. An elderly man who had lost his faith in his youth knelt again after seeing a radiance in the sky shaped like a blue cloak. None of these stories appeared on the news, but they circulated by word of mouth, filling those who heard them with tears and hope. In Europe, however, the phenomenon was experienced with great attention. Cathedrals began to fill up in a way not seen for decades. In cold cities, where faith had been relegated to the private sphere, Marian chants could once again be heard echoing through the streets. At the same time, movements accusing the Church of manipulating fear grew. The polarization was evident. While some surrendered to heaven's call, others hardened their hearts. The most skeptical scientists tried to offer natural explanations for what happened on August 20th. Some spoke of electromagnetic disturbances, others of collective suggestion. However, what puzzled them most was the synchronicity. Never before in history have we recorded such a simultaneous psychosocial phenomenon in so many different cultures and regions, admitted one professor in an interview. This defies any known pattern. What they were trying to cover up was what many already suspected. What happened did not come from the earth, but from the sky. The online testimonies continued to multiply. A young woman in the Philippines tearfully shared how she had seen the Virgin Mary with a luminous rosary, calling her to let go of her resentment toward her family. A soldier in the Middle East recounted how, amid the sound of gunfire, he felt a sudden silence and heard a female voice telling him, "Do not be afraid, there is still time to save your soul." In Argentina, a group of teenagers confessed to having quit drugs after experiencing the same dream, a woman looking at them tenderly and urging them to choose life. Could this all be a coincidence? The feeling that a deeper purification was underway became impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about what had happened, but what was coming. It was as if August 20th had been merely a prelude, a bell ringing that marked the beginning of a much larger symphony. And those with open hearts knew that the Virgin was preparing her children to endure something that would put them to the ultimate test. In certain places, spontaneous pilgrimages began to appear. Without anyone organizing them, thousands of people walked to Marian shrines carrying candles, images, and songs. What was surprising was that many of these pilgrimages were not convened by institutions, but rather sprang from simple hearts, as if a single inspiration swept across the planet. On these walks, people shared their experiences, wept, confessed, and asked for forgiveness. There were no sophisticated speeches, only souls recognizing that they had been touched by heaven. But as always happens when the light shines, the darkness reacted violently. Organized groups began to attack these pilgrimages, mocking the faithful, interrupting prayers, and raising slogans against the faith. What they didn't know, however, was that such opposition only strengthened the resolve of those who had felt the truth. For when someone has seen even a spark of heavenly fire, no mockery or persecution can extinguish their conviction. Meanwhile, in the silence of prayer, some mystics received clearer visions. They spoke of a time time of double purification, a first, interior one, already underway since August 20th, and another, more visible one, which would manifest in the heavens and on earth. What is coming will not be to destroy, they warned, but to separate light from darkness, so that each soul may choose where it wishes to remain. These words quietly circulated in communities and prayer groups, fueling the certainty that what they had experienced was only the beginning of a much larger divine plan. The simple people, in their wisdom, understood this better than anyone. The Virgin is warning us, the grandmothers would say as they taught their grandchildren to pray. If we don't prepare now, it will be more difficult later. It was as if a spiritual instinct had been awakened, reminding everyone that faith is not a habit, but a shield in times of trial. And although the days passed and the calendar filled with new dates, August 20th, 2025 remained etched like a luminous scar in history. No one could look back without feeling that something had been broken in reality, as if the veil separating the visible from the invisible had been torn. And that wound in time remained open, allowing rays of eternity to filter into the everyday world. The most disturbing thing was the feeling that the worst, or the best, had yet to arrive, as if the sky had revealed only a seed of what was about to germinate. Seers and mystics never tired of repeating it. This is only the beginning, and hearts, torn between fear and hope, remained vigilant, awaiting the next movement of sacred history. The hours following August 20th, 2025 left an indelible mark on the human spirit. Although the calendar continued to advance, the world was never the same. It was as if reality had shifted in vibration, as if an invisible veil had been lifted, revealing that everything known was merely a fragile surface. People walked through the streets with the same everyday gestures, but within each heart a silent battle was waged, that of accepting or rejecting the heavenly sign that had shaken the planet. In some places, priests heard confessions in long lines of people who hadn't received the sacrament for years. In others, young people who had never attended Mass asked to learn how to pray the rosary. "I don't know why, but I feel like I must," they repeated through tears. The mystery of August 20th had rekindled a hunger for the sacred. It wasn't a mere memory, it was a living, latent call, like an echo that never ceased to resound. However, not everyone responded with faith. There were those who decided to harden their hearts, mocking those who believed, accusing them of mass hysteria, speaking of conspiracies and manipulations. The rejection wasn't indifference, it was rage. And that rage grew because deep down, those souls knew they had been touched by something they couldn't control or deny. The light was uncomfortable, and in their discomfort they preferred to shout against it. Meanwhile, some seers claimed to have received clearer revelations. In night visions, they described seeing a double fire descending from the sky, a fire that didn't destroy, but illuminated, revealing what was hidden. A fire that showed the truth of each soul, tearing away masks, exposing secrets, laying bare hearts. And they claimed that August 20th had been just a glimpse of that greater fire that would come as a second purification. These words spread from mouth to mouth, in prayer groups, in small hidden communities. No one knew exactly when or how it would happen, but everyone agreed on the same thing. What was coming would be impossible to ignore. Some awaited it with anxiety, others with fear. But even the most skeptical were beginning to experience the feeling that humanity's clock had changed. The official press, unable to silence the testimonies, attempted to offer rational explanations. They published headlines that spoke of atmospheric phenomena, collective suggestion, even satellite failures that had caused lights in the sky. But these excuses convinced no one. Those who had experienced the tremor in their soul knew it was not a scientific accident, but a touch from heaven. Distrust of institutions increased, and more people sought the truth in prayer, in the scriptures, and in the messages of the Virgin. The most surprising thing was how the phenomena continued to repeat themselves in small signs. In remote villages, statues of the Virgin Mary began to weep tears that some witnesses claimed were of blood. In other places, rosaries that had been forgotten for years appeared intact and shiny, as if new. At night, thousands of people around the world reported dreams of the same woman dressed in white, who looked at them silently, pointing to the sky. In the silence of those dreams, many heard the same phrase, "Time is no longer the same," a subtle but clear warning that what they experienced on August 20th was not an isolated event, but a door that had opened and would would never close again. The elders, with their simple wisdom, understood this better than anyone. They told their grandchildren, "Do not be afraid. What is coming is not to destroy us, but to awaken us." And at the same time, they ceaselessly repeated the prayers that entire generations had sustained: the rosary, the litanies, the Marian chants. They knew that faith was the safest refuge from the unknown. Meanwhile, in the most sensitive hearts, a certainty began to grow. The Virgin had not revealed everything, that she still held a secret, a profound message that would only be revealed when humanity was ready. August 20th had been the spark, but not the complete flame, and that secret kept millions awake, praying, waiting, wondering what else was to come. It was impossible to walk under the night sky without looking at the stars with different eyes. Every glimmer seemed like a sign, every cloud an omen. And although some tried to return to their routine, deep down everyone knew there was no turning back. The mystery had been planted, and sooner or later it would flourish. Thus, August 20th, 2025 was etched as a before and after, not only in the history of the Church, but in the history of the entire world. And while humanity moved forward with uncertain steps, the echo of that day continued to resonate like a divine bell that no one could ignore. Days had passed since that August 20th, 2025, but the feeling did not disappear. It was like an invisible mark in the air, a spiritual perfume that did not fade. Families, in their homes, were beginning to change routines they had maintained for years. Where before the silence of televisions or the distraction of cell phones reigned, now prayers, Marian chants, and profound conversations about the meaning of life and the closeness of the eternal could be heard. In small communities, spontaneous night vigils were organized. People gathered in squares, churches, and simple courtyards, carrying lit candles and rosaries. There were tears, hugs, and public confessions of guilt held back for decades. It was as if the invisible fire of August 20th had begun to purify from within, unleashing what was hidden and forcing many to confront their own truth. The testimonies were countless. A woman in Mexico recounted that, while praying the rosary with her children, she saw the living room crucifix begin to glow with a soft light that illuminated the entire room. In Argentina, an elderly man claimed that, upon waking up one morning, he found a fresh rose petal on his bedside table, even though he had no flowers at home. In Colombia, young people who had never believed claimed that a white figure had appeared to them in dreams, asking them to return to God's path. These stories, shared on social media, not only multiplied, they confirmed one another. People from different continents who had never met described similar experiences, as if they were all being guided by the same voice, a maternal, serene voice urging conversion, prayer, and preparation. And with each new testimony, the mystery grew. Theologians began to debate intensely. Some saw August 20th as the beginning of the so-called warning foretold in several Marian apparitions, that moment when each soul would see its spiritual state before God, as if in a divine mirror. Others interpreted it as a prelude, a warning of something much greater yet to come. But no one dared to dismiss it, because the evidence was overwhelming and people were changing in real and visible ways. Tensions were also felt globally. Some governments began to monitor religious movements with suspicion, fearing that renewed faith would become an uncontrollable force. In some countries, attempts were even made to censor social media testimonies, labeling them as fake news. But the more they tried to silence them, the more they multiplied. It was like an unstoppable river finding new channels. The most impressive thing was the power of transformation in hearts. People who had been estranged from the faith for years returned with a surprising passion. Broken marriages were reconciled. Addicts found the strength to break free from their chains. Young people who had previously lived without hope now spoke of purpose and mission. Something profound was brewing, not just a social movement, but a revolution of the spirit. However, at the same time, resistance also intensified. Entire groups rejected the experience, mocking those who spoke of the Virgin Mary or divine signs. In forums and debates, they accused believers of naivete, but deep down, even amid their mockery, there was a hint of fear. Because the signs couldn't be easily denied, they kept happening, they kept appearing, they kept touching lives. Days became different. People no longer marked time by calendar dates, but by a new inner compass. Everyone spoke of before August 20th and after August 20th. It was as if an invisible line had divided divided recent history. And that division wasn't just chronological, it was spiritual. Amid this charged atmosphere, a rumor grew increasingly louder that the Virgin had not yet revealed everything planned for humanity, that there was a sealed message kept deep within that would only be revealed when the world was ready, and that August 20th, 2025 had been just the beginning, a kind of wake-up call. The true purification, they said, was still underway. Hearts trembled upon hearing these words. Some felt fear, others hope, but all agreed on one thing: humanity was no longer walking in the dark. It now knew that heaven was watching closely, that the Mother was interceding, that a greater plan was at work. The nights became moments of anticipation. Under the stars, millions of souls raised their prayers, waiting for signs, seeking answers, silently wondering what new steps were about to be revealed in the mystery that had unfolded on that unforgettable day. We have walked together through the mystery of August 20th, 2025, a day that must not go unnoticed. We don't know if it will be the beginning of purification, the confirmation of ancient prophecies, or simply a call to awaken before the inevitable. But we do know one thing: the Virgin Mary never abandons her children. She is here, guiding, warning, preparing. And now I ask you, brother, sister, do you believe that this August 20th will bring the sign that will change the course of humanity? Leave me your comment, because your voice is also part of this prophecy that is just beginning.